The night the snow began to fall like silent ashes from a broken sky, Daniel Reeves thought he was only driving home to his empty apartment and his sleeping 6-year-old son. He did not know that one small act of kindness on that frozen roadside would unravel secrets, danger, and a truth that would change his life forever. If you believe that kindness still matters in this world, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Grandma Dearie. Your support keeps stories of hope and second chances alive. Daniel was used to long nights. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years earlier, he had learned to survive on little sleep and endless responsibility. By day, he stacked shelves at a grocery store. By night, he drove his old taxi to make enough to cover rent and his son Liam's school fees. Life had hardened his hands but softened his heart. Every coin he earned carried the weight of survival. That evening, the snowstorm hit earlier than expected. The city streets emptied, traffic lights blinked against swirling white wind, and Daniel considered calling it a night. That was when he saw her. She stood barefoot on the side of the road, a long gray coat wrapped tightly around her frame. One of her black heels dangled from her hand, and the hem of her dress was torn as if it had caught on something sharp. Snow gathered in her dark hair, and her face carried an expression that wasn't just fear. It was calculation mixed with exhaustion. Daniel slowed down without thinking. Every warning voice in his head told him to drive past. He had a child waiting at home. He could not afford trouble. But the sight of her bare feet pressed against the frozen pavement pierced something deep inside him. He remembered his late wife once saying that the world survives because ordinary people choose to stop. He rolled down his window and offered her a ride. She hesitated before opening the passenger door. Her eyes scanned the backseat, the dashboard, even the rearview mirror. She moved like someone trained to observe. Daniel noticed it but said nothing. He simply turned up the heater and handed her an old wool blanket he kept for emergencies. As they drove, silence settled heavily between them. The storm worsened, swallowing the city in white noise. Daniel learned that her name was Alina, that she needed to get out of the downtown district quickly, and that she had no phone. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled beneath the blanket. Halfway to the suburbs, headlights appeared behind them, too close, too persistent. A black SUV followed at a distance, then drew nearer when Daniel turned off the main road. Alina stiffened. Her calm expression cracked, revealing fear that felt dangerously real. Daniel's heart pounded. He was not a hero. He was a tired father with a second-hand car. But he had made a promise to himself long ago that he would never let fear decide who he was. He took a series of narrow residential turns, navigating snow-covered streets he knew by memory. The SUV overshot one intersection, then disappeared into the storm. Alina finally exhaled. When they reached Daniel's modest apartment building, he offered her a place to warm up until morning. It was reckless. He knew that. But something about her situation felt bigger than a simple argument or a broken relationship. It felt dangerous. Inside the small apartment, Liam slept on the couch with his favorite dinosaur blanket. The sight softened Alina's expression. She knelt beside him for a moment, brushing snow from her coat, as if grounding herself in something innocent and safe. Daniel made tea. He noticed bruises forming along Alina's wrist, faint but visible. He noticed how she positioned herself near the window, always aware of outside movement. And he noticed the way her eyes softened whenever she looked at his son. It was close to dawn when the truth surfaced. There was a knock on the door, firm, official. Daniel froze. Panic rushed through him. He had done nothing wrong, yet fear clawed at his chest. Alina stood slowly, her posture transforming in seconds. The trembling woman from the roadside vanished. In her place stood someone composed, controlled, and authoritative. She reached into the lining of her torn coat and pulled out a concealed badge. Alina was not a runaway in the way he had imagined. She was an undercover police officer who had been infiltrating a trafficking ring operating through elite social events. The torn dress, the missing phone, the SUV, they were all pieces of a mission that had gone wrong when her cover was compromised. She had escaped on foot, chased through frozen streets. The officers at the door were part of her unit. They had been tracking her location but lost signal during the storm. The SUV belonged to suspects now in custody, thanks to her transmitted emergency alert before her device was destroyed. Daniel stood speechless, tea still steaming in his hands. Alina turned to him with something new in her eyes, not calculation, not fear, but gratitude. She explained that if he had driven past, she might have been captured. If he had hesitated when the SUV followed, she might not have made it. In the following weeks, Daniel returned to his routine. Shelves, taxi shifts, school lunches, but something had shifted inside him. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a struggling single father, but as a man whose quiet courage mattered. Alina visited once, this time in uniform. Liam stared at her with wide admiration. She brought him a small police badge sticker and told him his father was braver than he realized. Daniel learned later that Alina had recommended him for a Community Civilian Bravery Recognition Award. The city mayor shook his hand in a modest ceremony that made local news. The extra attention brought more taxi customers. Someone offered him a better driving contract. Life did not magically become easy, but it became lighter. More importantly, Daniel began to see himself differently. He was no longer just surviving. He was living with purpose. Alina's undercover assignment ended months later. Before transferring to another unit, she stopped by one last time.